There are moments in life when time doesn't stop. It doesn't freeze or slow down the way movies promise. Instead, it keeps going, coolly, indifferently, while something inside you breaks, so quietly that only you hear it. The moment I remember most clearly is not the night my daughter went into surgery. It's not the sound of machines or the smell of antiseptic. It's a sentence. A man stood 2 feet from an 8-year-old child, looked at her like she was an inconvenience, and said, "You should have aborted." I didn't cry, not because I was strong, but because crying would have shattered me, and my daughter needed me standing. So I stood, and that choice changed everything. The steps outside the club were polished stone, the kind that reflects wealth without saying it out loud. They had been worn smooth by shoes that never worried about hospital bills or borrowed time. Inside the building, violins played, not loudly, tastefully. Laughter floated through glass doors like it belonged to a different universe. Champagne flutes clinked together. Someone congratulated someone else on a retirement well earned. Everything about that place celebrated comfort, and I didn't belong there. I knew it the moment we stopped at the bottom of the stairs. My daughter Maddie stood beside me. 8 years old, too thin, too quiet. She had learned early that silence keeps adults calmer. Her backpack hung from one shoulder, even though she wasn't going anywhere after this. It was a habit, carrying her world with her. In my left hand, I held her fingers. In my right, a thick folder. Medical records, estimates, that meant now or never. Normal people don't show up uninvited to private events. Normal people don't bring their children to places built for exclusion. But normal people don't have children whose hearts are failing either. The hostess met us halfway up the stairs. Her smile was professional, gentle, practiced. "I'm sorry," she said, already apologizing for what she wouldn't change. "This is a private event." "I know," I answered. My voice surprised me with how calm it sounded. "I need to speak with Brandon Caldwell." Her eyes flicked to my clothes, then to Maddie, then back to me. "Do you have an invitation?" I shook my head. "I can't let you in." "I understand." And I did. I understood more than she knew. She started to turn away. That's when Maddie squeezed my hand. Not hard, not dramatically, just enough for me to feel the tremor. Something shifted inside me then. Not anger, not panic, resolve. "Please," I said quietly, Just tell him this. There's a woman here, and the little girl next to her is his daughter. The hostess blinked. Once, twice. Her face changed, just a fraction, enough to see the human beneath the rules. Wait here, she said, and disappeared. I almost left. I almost chose pride over survival. But when your child is standing next to you, shaking silently, pride becomes irrelevant. We waited. Behind the glass doors, people moved easily. They didn't know us. They didn't know time was measured differently for us now. After a few minutes, the doors opened. He stepped out like the night belonged to him. Brandon Caldwell hadn't changed. Same confident walk, same effortless smile, same body language of a man who had never been told no and meant it. His suit fit perfectly. Of course it did. A cigar rested between his fingers like a prop. He stopped when he saw us. For a second, just one, something flickered across his face. Recognition, not confusion, not shock. Recognition. He looked at Maddie. Her eyes, her mouth, the way she frowned slightly when she was overwhelmed. And I knew. He knew. So, he said finally, exhaling smoke away from us like he was doing us a favor. You really had it. Maddie pressed closer to me. She's 8, I said. He laughed softly, not amused, dismissive. And what is this? He asked. You need money? I nodded. How much? I opened the folder. Not dramatically, not shaking, just facts. His eyes skimmed the pages. Numbers, diagnoses, deadlines. Boredom arrived quickly. You chose this, he said, closing the folder with one finger. I gave you another option back then. I swallowed. I didn't come here to argue choices, I said. I came because she needs surgery. He tilted his head. So she's sick too, he said. There was relief in his voice. Relief that the universe had handed him an excuse. Then he said it, calmly, clearly, in front of her. You should have aborted. You get nothing from me. Children don't understand legal terms, but they understand rejection instantly. I didn't scream. I didn't slap him. I didn't fall apart. I closed the folder. Understood, I said, and turned away. As he walked back inside, back to applause and laughter and a life untouched, my daughter looked up at me. Mom, she asked softly, is he really my dad? I knelt and held her face. He helped make you, I said, but a father is the one who stays. She nodded, and that was that. Part 4, how we got there. I didn't plan to raise a child alone. I didn't plan to fall in love with someone who saw people as disposable. I moved to Columbus because I had nowhere else to go. My grandmother raised me, truly raised me. She was discipline and warmth and survival wrapped into one woman with tired hands and a stubborn heart. I studied nursing because helping others felt easier than fixing myself. I didn't like clubs. I didn't like crowds. The night I met Brandon, I was standing against a wall, counting minutes until I could leave. He noticed me because men like him notice everything they think they can take. He smiled like we were already a story, and I was young enough to believe him. Part 5. The night that changed everything. He drove us out of the city. Fields, darkness, silence. He talked about himself, his father, his connections. If anything happens, he said laughing, they'll always get me out. I felt cold. What happened next wasn't romantic. It wasn't mutual. It was final. Afterward, he looked at me like I was something he hadn't expected to keep. Seriously? He said. You're first? I nodded and immediately wished I hadn't. He smirked. Then he disappeared. When the pregnancy test showed 2 lines, my first thought wasn't fear. It was hope. I told him. We met. He offered an abortion like it was a coffee order. I refused. He handed me money and said, from here on out, it's your responsibility. And I believed him. Maddie was born small and perfect and broken. Congenital heart defect. Not now, but someday. Someday came faster than we expected. At 8 years old, she couldn't breathe right. The doctor said soon. Soon meant money. Money I didn't have. That's why I stood on those steps. That's why I heard that sentence. Not him. Strangers. Paperwork. Law. Kindness. Community. She survived. She thrived. After surgery, she ran like she'd been waiting her whole life. She learned fast. Built faster. By 30, she was wealthy. But more importantly, alive. Years later, a journalist found him. Broken. Drunk. Alone. When he realized who she was, he didn't feel regret. He felt loss. And that told me everything. People ask if I feel vindicated. I don't. Because the real victory wasn't his downfall. It was my daughter's heartbeat. Strong, steady, unapologetic. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this. You don't owe anything to someone who chose nothing.